It is showtime.
Woo! We out here
We are indeed out here.
in a bit of a weird form factor, but we'll get into that here in a second.
Exactly. Oh, whoops.
Oh, double intro
Double.
already.
Exactly. All
So let's put it
right.
in the clip.
I think we have our little new form factor for today. I think we're still waiting for people to stream in today. I hope there's no technical issues.
Yeah, we didn't pump it up as much as we have before, which is kind of an experiment on our part. But Aiko is here. It's just not showing with our numbers. Aiko, thanks for dropping by. Oh, and for any audio listeners, the video right now is just both of our profile pictures with some actually pretty nice vibrating, hey, this person's talking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, we're coming just audio basically for today with some visuals, but we'll talk through them.
Exactly. Well, I mean, do we want to just come out and say why? Why don't we have a video today?
Because I'm struggling. I'm riding the struggle bus in terms of my internet. If you follow me on Farcaster, you'll see you saw my internet speed test. But I'm out on vacation with the fam and do not have access to anything. Oh, we got banners now. Look at that. We're
Yes.
moving up in the world.
Because I feel like we're gonna have to re-explain this as people stream in, so I wanted to make that more clear.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that explains anything. The caption is Cameron is riding the struggle bus re-internet, which is like a combination of honestly, I think struggle bus is millennial slang, but it's like millennial
Oh, that's
slang
true.
plus corpo speak. So just maybe we just put Cam has bad internet.
Oh, okay, fine. Oh,
Yeah,
this amused me for a second.
yeah.
Cameron has bad internet, so we are indeed having a special no visual episode today.
Oh my goodness, Kristen, that is not terse or communicative.
Aw.
No, it's fine. Do you. And Mona Lisa, thanks for
I
dropping by.
It's always been my dream to be able to control my own news chevron with whatever nonsense I put on there.
I feel like but Mona Lisa, is it from Mona Lisa for your username? And I appreciate that you're my fan. My face will be back here on our next show, which we'll talk about as well later.
Exactly. Yeah, we wanted to we titled this episode special. And we kind of like went in knowing that, oh gosh, this is gonna be the no visual weird episode. But so we wanted to make sure that that is our themes. We wanted to directly address what to do when things don't work out the way you want to, and how we can position ourselves to make it feel special.
Yeah, specialness is a state of mind, and that's what we're trying to figure out how to make today.
Yeah. So, like, speaking of feeling special, how were you special this week?
Um, how was I special this week? Is that feels like an interesting way to ask that. Because I don't think I've ever thought about it that way. But obviously that's what we've been asking each other, so I probably should have thought of that ahead of time. Um, I don't know. I guess to answer that, I have to like figure out what makes me feel special. And while I am like yapping to give myself space to think, Kristen, what makes you feel special?
So, related to this week's multilingual setup. For those of you who don't know, right now, at least for our previous episode, you can set different languages for the closed captions. So this is the wide array of translations available from YouTube. So hopefully your language is represented. And theoretically, even right now, with our closed captions right now, you can auto translate it because there's actually a slight latency between what me and Cameron are talking about and what you're hearing. So let us know if it's working, if you can do that. But yeah, like for me, like had like wanted to set this up because I remember like growing up, I didn't grow up an English speaker. I think a lot of people don't know that. And I grew up speaking Chinese, and I remember, oh my God, it was such a struggle as a kid to learn English. I remember I really wanted to watch my cool Japanese anime that's dubbed in Cantonese, but then I was forced to watch this stupid show called Sesame Street.
Right.
Because that was the only English like children's program on. And I remember like I really hated Sesame Street as a kid because it was not what I wanted to watch. Um, so like no, and then also like I was shunted into an international school from a local school,
Hmm.
where everyone else is actually a native English speaker. There's a lot of expats in that school. So then
Interesting.
like I was treated as quote special in the
Rough.
sense of like you get like thrown into the other special
Bad
kids
special.
class. Yeah, exactly, the bad special, where you have to do these like extremely baby tasks because like you know what's going on, but you just don't know what's going on in English. So I remember like thinking, oh, I just want to be like everyone else. I don't want to be special. So that was something that was top of my mind this week.
Huh.
And so what I really wanted to do is to help make sure that we all feel special, but in the way that we want and not in the picked on and then like, isolated sort of way.
That's really interesting. Like we haven't talked about this at all, but
Mhm.
we talked about a little hooligan cam, but like precursor to hooligan cam was weird kid cam, right? And so like weird kid cam, that's a mouthful. Like weird kid cam wanted nothing more to be like than to be just kind of normal, but like just like me, but that being normal. You know what I mean? Uh, and like there's a
How were
lot.
you weird? I mean, you're weird now, but then
Yeah.
how were you obviously weird as a child?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple different factors, but like one of the big ones was I was young for my year group, and so in the state of Georgia in the U.S. where I grew up, the school cutoff year is like August to September, and so my birthday actually you're gonna be pissed at this. My birthday is today, and I didn't tell you because I wanted you to
No,
find
you
out on
didn't
stream.
tell me. Oh, I hate
But
this.
yeah, yeah. So the anyway, but so like I was a small kid, so just starting off, that's tough as like a boy in the South where like athletics is really important. And so I was the smallest and I sucked at everything because I was like
Mhm.
less coordinated by, at least a couple months, some kids by about a year. I also was really good at school, which like canonically makes you weird, right? And so, like, small, bad at sports, smart, liked a bunch of weird internet crap. And then there's a whole bunch of, yes, no, Sam, I did not tell you that it's my birthday. Talking to the chat. And then, kind of like intermixed in there, is I was raised Catholic in the South, which is primarily like Protestant, if y'all are familiar with kind of like the history of Christianity. So I was like, weird in that like a lot of people in the South like don't necessarily treat Catholicism in the same way. And then over time, I
Mhm.
kind of like grew more like spurts of atheism, agnosticism, a bunch of other like weird stuff. And so like I was like weird or like an other in a sense, and then got kind of like weirder. Uh, anyway, so that's all to like bring home the fact that like to feel special in a lot of ways for me isn't like the thing that I'm trying to do. But especially over the past like 10 plus years, I've spent a lot of time like trying to figure out like what makes me feel like comfortable or confident in like me as a person. And that's also a feel like a form of like wanting to feel special but yourself.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if I've felt special this week because I think the closest I come to feeling special is when I do a good job because like my psyche is like tied in with me doing things well, which isn't necessarily the healthiest way to live
I
your
was gonna
life.
say that's a very dangerous trapping
Yeah, I'm
that you
like
and
I
I fall into.
yeah, that's the insecure overachiever stuff we've been talking about.
Exactly. Well, we'll get into the psychology of that in a bit, but we're gonna go through some of the okayest bangers of the week. So
Hell
let's
yeah,
see if the screen sharing works.
awesome. And
Cameron,
while
make
you're
small talk while I fiddle with this.
That's exactly what I was gonna do. We got the hosting instincts down. Thank you everybody for the happy birthday wishes. They are not necessary, but they are very appreciated. I I apologize. I didn't intend to keep it a secret. I honestly kind of forgot it was my birthday until a couple days ago, because I haven't kept track of it for a long time. Because like I was in military college doing a bunch of military stuff, after I got out of high school. Then I did army stuff. And then in both of those environments, I usually had stuff to do on my birthday. And it was like a busy time. So I haven't really done like birthday celebration stuff. Oh, yeah, Sam, the Weird Kids podcast, parentheses endearingly, is potentially a good alt name for okay. Why do men do this? I'm assuming that's in reference to my birthday and not just the yapping that I'm doing. But Huggle Monster, I'm not sure. I think it is because a lot of men are kind of taught that their only worth is in the things that they produce. And so birthdays are inherently non-productive activity.
My gosh. Well, on that note,
bangers.
So for today's section, screen it's showing Noah Bragg's. I was the one who curated to this week, and I wanted to show something a little bit different from the standard definition of bangers. I wanted something that features more of like our ordinary / extraordinary rather than just like a clever saying or combination or pairing in addition. So like for me, like I really like it when a cast like showcases something about that person's personal life. Maybe that's kind of creepy, but here, like
voyeuristic, not creepy.
Oh yeah, is voyeuristic not creepy? I feel like
it doesn't have to be. It has the connotation, but I don't think it has to be, because like reading a biography is voyeuristic, but not inherently creepy.
That's true. Yeah, I wanted like a peek into your slice of life, kind of like a slice of life anime situation. So here, like, I think it's really neat that Noah built this like custom little step, which does seem very required. Else you're just gonna like fall down right here. So these are casts that I consider bangers, because I think we can talk about stuff on the internet all the time, but to be able to peek into someone's personal life is really neat. And then. So here's another example of that. It's Dura talking about what he's doing all the time. So he's a filmmaker, and like for us to be able to glimpse all this like heavy equipment and this like creepy clown situation in a hospital, I think was super neat. And of course, Abbas had kindly asked, like, what is the product? It's actually for spreading awareness for children's hospitals for cancer. So I'm like, gosh dang, like
that is super cool. Kristen, I will say something I've said. I'm going to talk a little slower because I know my internet's not great. The Mona Lisa was saying your internet was weird, so maybe you got to talk a little more. But
I noticed that even though like this is something like a streaming technical situation, even though my internet is fine, when Cameron's internet is bad, it takes down my streaming for some reason.
I'm too powerful.
Exactly. I will slow down. But yeah, this is the good feature.
The chat has a good point in that your light mode is maybe the worst thing on this podcast.
Is that what's happening? So I can't see the chat while I'm showing my screen. Oh, okay. I mean, doesn't it show up better on here
though? We'll let the chat decide, but I'm gonna be a little quieter so you can get through this section without my internet screwing it up.
Okay. All right. Yeah, like stigmatism, and it is really hard for weed text. I'm sorry, light text against a dark background up as like really like fuzzy to me, whereas like light mode actually shows up clearer. So I have a medical reason for using light and feel bad for. With this one, I love a classic. Me waiting for a new OK Banger episode and showing the skeleton patiently waiting. So that is always a good banger to me when you pair a meme image with a little saying that's topical. And then with this one, I'm gonna have the sound off because I'm actually not sure we'll get copyright striked. But this is a Dan meme where he talked about the amount of work he puts into every cast. And he shows the producer of 1,000 Miles. This is a very extremely millennial reference, the Vanessa Carlton song. And it shows like the the insanity of dedication that he has, right? But of course, this was like Dan again trying to be like, do better, stop spamming or whatever, while giving us absolutely no clue as to what that means, which made it a really ripe meme to make fun of. So then we have Cassie showing Vanessa Carlton, and then what this goes into is an overdub of a metal song. So I thought like this was extremely uh, relevant to how ridiculous all these requirements are. And I love Elle's take, where it's a person remaking Toxic with a computer completely muted, and that person just sounds completely off key. So I think like these are examples of bangers that I like, where of course you're trying to improv on top of an existing cast and making fun of the original cast as well as yourself. All right, I'm gonna check the chat really quick because I realize I can't. I'm having a monologue conversation. So Cameron, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that when we have an image plus a video inside of it, my internet is absolutely borked. So I'm gonna be pretty chill until we get back to images and maybe just let's talk.
Got it. Okay. All right, moving on. So I also love this cast. This actually, you Cameron, you have to comment on this one. So this is Yorb saying that I reached 0 negativity this week. Like sunflower rainbow emoji. And this is like information from this bot. And when you first released this feature, I was making fun of it because I was like, okay, now Cameron Armstrong is judging whether I'm positive or negative. And I was like, am I supposed to aim for like 0 negativity? Like, what's going on here? And this is extra funny to me because before we started, we were calibrating our positivity. We hit live, and I was being grumpy as usual.
The funny thing about it is like we almost didn't ship that part of it because it's like, is this useful enough for people? Because like for anyone following along, we every week we have some insights that'll go to your inbox. We are just kind of like figuring out useful things we could provide for people and creators on Farcaster. And one of the things we do is we analyze the content of all your casts for the past 7 days. And then we use like a language model to be like, okay, these sound positive, these are like neutral, and then these sound negative. And people really got into that feature because I think they're kind of afraid of sounding negative, which is kind of funny because Dan said that negative or like negative sounding stuff actually performs better on the broader internet, but maybe less on Farcaster. But it's like it's like almost turned into this mindfulness feature. At least that's kind of how I'm interpreting it. Is that your take, Kristen?
I I was stopping myself from saying very demure. So I think it is like definitely something that maybe pause when I was looking at like this categorization. But then immediately I was giving a feedback of like, okay, you gotta tell me which casts, because I can't tell which casts are considered negative by the AI. So I can't actually improve.
It's coming. It's coming.
I know.
Yeah, because like we can't send you a bajillion DMs because no one will read them. And so like we're trying to keep the direct cast like payload down to like a manageable size. But the static pages themselves, like we want to make sure that the interface is useful enough instead of just kind of like a static wall of stuff that you check once and then never check again. And so like we're trying to make the loop of it being actually useful for you before we release it. Oh, so you said demure. Somebody in the chat's asked, can you explain that?
Oh my gosh. So in our last episode, Cameron had explained this meme back to me, and he said there's a striking individual who has this catchphrase of explaining their makeup, being very mindful, very demure in the workplace, and that took off as a TikTok meme. So in order to keep up with the times, millennial, I now have this brain worm that tells me to say very demure when I hear the word mindful, which is not that great considering that I'm a Buddhist chaplain and I actually have a different definition of mindfulness. But I have been succumbed to brain rot.
Well, I gotta actually make you even more annoyed with the whole process. The meme is basically at the end of its life cycle for anybody that considers themselves bleeding edge of the internet, because now it's like leaked into the mainstream. So it's
Yeah.
it's something to be able to ironically reference, but not ironically reference because
Oh no. Well, yeah, I did see someone post. I'm sorry, I didn't save it, but someone did post in Farcaster the very demure, very, and then the person having their mouth pinched to get them
yeah.
to shut up. So I understand that it's no longer very hip to say fellow kids.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. The internet, the trend cycles are like, so one of the things that blew my mind about trend cycles when I realized is like
Mhm.
they're driven by actors that have infinite time. Do you know what actors I'm talking about?
No.
They're children. Children have infinite time. Like there's
Oh.
no way an adult with like a normal or even like an independently wealthy adult that doesn't have to work can keep
Mhm.
up with the like mimetic treadmill of a child that is just fucking around socially in school and then has from the end of school till that when they go to bed, like forever for however many years that they do school stuff. So it's impossible to keep up with that stuff as like a normal human being.
So, I think that's the other disturbing thing, right? Is that we are literally learning from little kids how to speak. So, therefore, we are all decreasing in maturity through mimesis.
That's an interesting take. I mean, like it's fair, and obviously, younger people have always set trends, but putting it in the context of algorithmic acceleration of listening to children as like adults,
Mhm.
I need to process that a little bit more before I have, I think, a thoughtful take. I definitely have gut reaction takes, but thoughtful takes, I'm not sure.
All right, let me skippity to the next one, which is a thoughtful take. Oh God. But this is an example of a person who has been around for a very long time through mimesis, right? Taydan. And I feel like maybe many folks in the chat may not know who this is. So actually, a quick question for the chat: do you know who Taydan is without looking it up? And Cam, if you can tell me what people are saying.
I will.
Yeah. So with the closed caption delay, we will see the reply slightly even more delayed, I think.
Yeah, maybe talk about the meme, and I'll let you know if the chat gets it.
Okay. All right. So Tayzonde, I always stop the scroll whenever he posts something. So again, this is getting into the think piece, thunk piece area of a banger. But I'm always amazed by this really unique takes. So here it is talking about the how hard it is for us to live densely as a society because of the poor construction of housing. And the thing is, I live in an apartment, right? I can hear upstairs and all of that. And I always thought, well, that's just the way it is. But then I never linked it to the fact that, well, that's why people in America, we don't like to live very close to each other, being sensorially assaulted by our neighbors, and it's just not as something as friendly as compared to when I lived in Asia, where even apartments would be would have really thick concrete walls, and you would never hear your neighbor.
That's interesting because like I always associated housing in the US with like the US is like one of the US's biggest resources is like the sheer amount of space it has.
Mhm.
And so Kristen, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a bunch of places, which I've dropped hints as I was doing the lingual thing. Like I grew up in Hong Kong, I grew up in Indonesia, I grew up in Malaysia as well.
Hmm, gotcha. And so Like obviously like those are pretty densely packed areas. Like in where I grew up in the southern US, like if you built two houses like within 30 feet of each other, it
Hmm.
would be like, why did you do that? Just like walk another like 50 feet away, because like there's just so much space around and there's just not that many people to do it. Obviously, like places like New York City and like cities are different, but like it would have never occurred to people to make high density housing because it
Hmm.
just is like easier just to make a different house than to make a tall building.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And as we are moving into like a city model in the US, that's of course this like push, right? Of like we need more supply of housing because the prices are skyrocketing. And I think this is where like it gets into this whole debate of like, well, like theoretically with remote work, like we don't have to all squeeze into a city. And a lot of these like more outskirts areas are just not they don't have a lot of entertainment. They have a lot of like for some places they have food deserts where you don't even have a grocery store. And I think it's like the infrastructure isn't really spread out enough yet for us to live spread apart.
Yeah, that I think is one of the hardest things, that like the so-called NIMBY movement of like, hey, this is a way that we're trying to shape our cities so that it's like kind of benefiting people that are like entrenched in the existing system, like
Hmm.
outside of Atlanta,
Hmm.
where like there is like a like Atlanta's mostly a sprawl in Georgia in the southeast US,
Hmm.
but like if I wanted to go to Atlanta from the suburb that I grew up in, which is like 45 minutes to an hour away, excuse me, my only option would be to drive. Like there is no transportation network in any direction outside the city of Atlanta other
Hmm.
than highways. Uh, like there are a couple of like bus pools where you can do, but like compared to anywhere in like the Northeast US, it just doesn't exist. And it's not perceived as a problem because like a lot of the people that have voices like could have always had a car. And so it's, I don't know, like this not my intent to turn this into like a not in my backyard stance, but like it's pretty freaking nuts that we don't care about like infrastructure that doesn't involve cars in the US.
Mm. Yeah, and I also realized that I can look at the live chat if I open YouTube Live on my phone. Because now I can see that someone did say breathing away from the mic. So I'm glad that at least one person knows who Tay is.
Oh yeah, make
Um,
make the reveal. Most people did not know. I failed at my job of reading the chat for you. I'm sorry.
oh no, it's okay. So Tay is the original YouTuber. So like he what year was it? Like around 2000 maybe? Like 20 years ago?
Well, no, it had to have been during the YouTube era, which that didn't come out till after that.
Oh, okay, okay. But still, like, he's one of the original YouTubers, and he was completely slaughtered and bullied because he had this one video where he sings a song called Chocolate Rain. And he's like a, really good singer. But the thing is, he says, like, really, what to us, really bizarre things. Like, I'm breathing away from the mic as a subtitle, as he's like dramatically turning away from the mic. And so, like, everyone just made fun of him. He was like, I don't know, like the Monica Lewinsky of the time or something, like just someone who was like completely cyberbullied. And
I
he had
mean,
this one-hit wonder as well situation, right? Because he was not known for any other video except for Chocolate Rain. It's almost like the original Haktua is Tay.
yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. The other characteristic of Tay is that his voice is the richest, deepest, most unexpected bass voice that you had heard on the internet up till that time, because we didn't have the depth of content that we do today. And
Mm-hmm.
so like to see this like person come across your feed, I mean, I guess you didn't really have feeds back then. You kind of had the homepage of YouTube, and then the news would play viral videos, right? Because that was how the world worked. But Tay is very fondly, along with Leroy Jenkins, and probably the, oh, who was the Trevor guy. What was that guy? What was that site? Do you remember that?
Is it E-Bombs World?
No, it's not eBaum's World, but a lot of the videos got ripped to eBaum's World. I'll think of it. I'll figure it out later. But the like he like Tay is in the meme Hall of Fame, along with the crazy ex-girlfriend with those eyes, like that class of me, like that era of memes.
Was it something awful forums? This is really revealing what I was on.
No, it was because we didn't have content aggregators in the same back then. This was its own site where this animator would just make the creations that they wanted, and they hosted it. A lot of the Ultimate Battle of Ultimate Destiny was, I think, on there. Magical Trevor, all the Magical Trevor. Man, I gotta look it up. I don't have the internet right now to search for things, but we can keep cruising. I'll find it later. I'll bring it up maybe next show.
We can have like a whole episode where we're just naming nostalgic things like Homestar Runner.
Very Homestar Runner coded. The Badger song, all that stuff.
Yeah, so anyway, so I really like this because it was definitely a think piece. Not that I actually intellectually contributed to it, though. I feel like that's the intimidating factor that I want to acknowledge is there. When someone writes a cast like this, I often just like a recast, but I'm like, I want to say something, like a good reply guy response, but I actually didn't do it. So I feel like this our current show right now is my attempt to reply guy on the fly. However, I want to show this other one that from Cookie that is in a way also a think piece, but only required one sentence. And it's related to said.
I don't agree with this, but continue.
Okay, so I'm gonna read it out loud for the listeners. It's not brain rot, it's just the culture evolving without you. So it's a provocative statement, sarcast.
Yeah, the brain rot didn't come from outside of the internet. Like, it's not an insult from from not the culture at the culture. You know what I mean? Like, brain rot evolved within the culture to describe a niche or a genre of the content that was like primarily on TikTok, because that was where like the youngest and the newest kind of stuff was coming out. But like, brain rot became the way to describe people were internalizing like the most mimetic parts of content, and then it has been subsequently adopted by people who are getting like the culture is evolving without them as like an insult to it. But like, in Riley, tell me I'm wrong. But like,
I couldn't tell what Riley's saying if you're wrong.
Yeah. Like, if I'm wrong, like, push back. Like, I'm always ready to learn more. But like, brain rot as like the thing being like, yes, it's kind of negative, but it's like ironically negative too, because in the act of like calling something brain rot, a lot of the times you'll make an even more extreme version of the brain rot content.
So I feel like on her cast that I've seen recently.
I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, wait, no, I'm wrong. No, I think Cameron is on the right track. I'm wrong. So you're saying that brain rot is meta aware, so they're not brain rot.
Yeah, I Riley and I are on similar, and for anyone in the chat, like, State of People is our friend Riley. Brain rot is like, and it's like a meta ironic it's not evolving, it's mutation, but mutation is by definition evolving, like part of evolution, I guess, is maybe the best way I could describe it on the fly. And like, parts of what brain rot has created has spawned new, interesting, creative, dare I say, dramatic narratives. Like, obviously people shit on Skibbity Toilet all the time, but if you watch the evolution from like the first Skibbity stuff all the way to like where it is now, like, it's a fairly compelling like narrative arc. Like if I had grown up in this era, I 1000% would have been so invested. Like, because I kind of like came more of age in like the Counter-Strike, the like early like the Halo 2 online, Halo 2 doubles on Xbox Live, the Gary's mod, Half-Life, that kind of like world of the internet. And the banana phone video in Gary's mod is the cultural like precursor to this one. Yeah, Riley, mutation, degeneration, but like a lot of the garbage that we see, like which of course is accelerated by like AI content generation, just making it super duper easy to make minds slop. Like I think out of that you can get these pools of like elemental I don't know, like the early pieces of the universe that like some of them do combine into like making something that is of higher order, higher complexity, and like more interesting.
Well, wouldn't as a biologist background person, like one biological argument would be that you need weird permutations of things to happen before the selection process can happen, and that maybe with brain rot type stuff, it's just yeah, it's super bizarre, but whichever has the most mimetic power will win. So like skippity toilet one, and like the mindful and mirrors last for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. Also, Kristen,
Mm-hmm.
don't be humble. You're a neuroscience PhD, not a biology background. Like talk your shit, man. Like you're smart as fuck.
Oh boy. Yes. That's something that Cameron and I have talked about. It's like, how much do we talk about our credentials? I think it makes sense to bring it up when it's relevant, though. So thanks for calling that out.
Hell yeah.
So, and lastly, this is my okayest banger of the week. So it is from our friend Justin, where startup and VC thought leaders, you can always feel product market fit when it is happening, PMF happening, and it's this insane, ridiculous dessert. Um, and I thought it was really good because it juxtaposed almost like this is, I think I would consider this culinary brain rot, like where you're just like, you're no longer caring about whether it tastes good or not. It's just like the most ridiculous thing possible. And of course, it is like they design it this way so that it can have viral lift, right? And that in turn drives business. And now we're in this race to the bottom where all like, restaurateurs have to come up with some gimmick for their food so people would film it. So then, people would actually know their store exists. So I wanted to ask you, Cameron, as a startup founder, like, what do you think of this particular cast? Uh-oh, did I lose Cameron is the question. Oops. Technical difficulties. All right.
Nice.
Are you back, Cameron?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So I was yapping, so it might up on record. But so we play video. That's what was my stream because it can't handle the live stuff happening.
Oh, right. Sorry. I will not replay it, which I'll screw you over even more.
But so yes, it did. But that's okay because this is a special episode and we're trying to feel special. And I certainly do. Maybe the bad kind. But so with like I don't feel, I felt PMF once, and that was at my last startup. And the way that like we felt PMF was when we could keep doing things and like money just fucking worked. And that's like a weird way to say it, but like basically we did a thing, money flow, the process that we were doing, and then we would see it, like try to improve it, and then it would work. And then we would try to improve it and it would work. And we just like kept doing that. And so it's a little different than what is happening here because it's like obviously trying to be like goofy and ridiculous. And I think Justin's PMF definition here is like, I really want this thing. And I like, I get it, and I honestly, I'm pretty hungry right now, so I do want this thing as well. Um, but I don't think this hits the PMF happening so much for me, but like the joke is still funny,
Mhm.
because jokes don't have to be right to be funny. And
Mm.
that's like I think what a lot of people who don't have a good sense of humor miss is like
Mhm.
sometimes the point of humor is to be intentionally wrong. And so like putting this as PMF is also a joke inside the actual joke.
Exactly, because then you actually get engagement because people will correct you. So I think it does work. But one thing I want to show for our audience here is like how can you do your own like text in a cast and a viral YouTube video or TikTok video setup. So I use this tool called Cobalt.tools. I think I'll cast about it later too, but like save this URL. This is a really good ripper of videos online. So like for example, if you drop in a YouTube link. So here's the thing, it doesn't work all the time because YouTube is really hammering down on like sites that scrape YouTube data, etc. And of course, like all the other ones are also on the lockdown. But this is one I found that works like at least more than half the time. So if you find something funny on the internet, outside of Farcaster, this is one way that you can quickly bring it over here for all of us to enjoy. So again, like practically speaking, we also want to help you craft your favorite bangers. So then I think a lot of times it's just the tooling, right? Like how do you take a video and then put it on Farcaster? Because as many of you know, like when we post even a YouTube link now, it's not showing the thumbnail reliably, which Cameron told me is actually because of YouTube side of things. So like a lot of times if you want like people to see what you're posting when it's a video, you have to make sure that it's actually natively uploaded. So this is what I do. I would like paste a link here, and then I would airdrop it to my phone because like for some reason the video upload is really terrible on desktop. So then I would do it from my phone and write the cast there. And that's my current workflow for sharing the haha funnies. I was wondering, Cameron, what do you use? Because you actually post a lot of stuff from TikTok too.
I will. So for TikTok, I typically use SnapTik, which is the best TikTok ripper I've seen. Obviously,
Mhm.
I'm watching TikTok on my phone because I'm not a fucking psycho. And so I'll get it, download to my phone, and then I'll edit it if I want to, then upload. And then I try to also link the original one so the creator
Mhm.
gets credit.
Mhm.
Sometimes I forget, but if people ask, I always have it. I save it. For YouTube, I will usually just download or I'll Google YouTube download and then we'll
Mm.
find whichever one because there's
Yeah.
like if you haven't been on the internet like for a significant chunk of your life, you don't realize this, but with platforms, there's a never-ending game of cat and mouse to
Mhm.
try to kill sites like this because
Mhm.
platforms hate you and want you to stay on their platform. And I will continue to say that till the day that I die. But the internet and information and content wants free. So that's how I share it. But so these sites pop up, and so I'll do YouTube download, then everything else is pretty straightforward. And just want to be clear, y'all, we're not sponsored by any of these.
Yeah.
We are just shamelessly asking you to clip us because that's the best thing that you can do to help us by like ship it, like by sharing us and clipping us. Then we can turn into a show that maybe gets a giant budget, and maybe one day we can drive a train into a pit like Mr. Beast. That's maybe something that would be cool to do on OK Banger. I don't know, but that's kind of up to you. Our fate is in your hands.
Exactly. And I see that the Woofy shared talk face as well. And people are asking, like, so we can post TikTok videos. Here's the thing. Dan himself rips off content from other platforms all the freaking time. I don't know whether you all have noticed. Like
It's the
he's
internet.
himself. Yeah, exactly. Like and then his whole like now the newest tirade is like there's not enough interesting content on Farcaster to attract people. So again, I feel like this goes back to like again ancient internet history, 9gag, right? Like if there is not enough content in one platform, the easiest ways to populate it is to allow other users to be able to import their own favorite stuff and curate their own favorite stuff from other platforms.
Hell yeah. And guys about because there's like a debate about like taking content. Obviously, you should credit original creators with everything, and because like you want them to eventually get the ad revenue and the social benefit to what they're
Mhm.
posting. But one of the underrated ways that we're building Farcaster's culture specifically, excuse me, if I narrow down in on that, is by curating stuff from other places to bring to Farcaster. Every time you post something from someone else to Farcaster, you are helping shape its culture. And I don't think we like talk about that enough.
So I think a lot, especially now in the age of AI slop, right? I think there is this elevation of status for the role of a curator. Like speaking of being special, I think like now your discerning taste it becomes the offering itself because like right now that there's like so much stuff, right? Like I followed Cameron because I thought, oh, this the stupid cat stuff that he posts are really funny to me. So I think like that's where like developing that taste of what you find interesting and having it like stand out against others becomes itself the creator job.
Yeah, I think we're in like an interesting in between period online because like
Mhm.
I don't know how strongly I think that create like curators turn to enduring sources of value. Um, because like in some ways like algos are always going to be better than people like at parsing a ton of stuff. But I
Mhm.
do think like as a role in communities, it's like really, really important because that is what shapes the vibe.
Exactly. So, yeah, so going back to feeling special, I did not know that you grew up in Georgia, though I could have guessed because one of my closest friends is from there and there's a certain like s- American gothic southern darkness thing that you guys have going on.
I mean that's a good way to describe it. I love southern like classically southern literature.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I do think people miss about the South, like obviously there is a very problematic history involving like the South in the US. Like there's a very rich tradition of people being really fucking miserable in the South. Sorry for cussing. And the but like people being miserable in the South and write about it and like dealing with it through alcoholism, kind of like primarily, but also through like religion, frankly dealing with the heat through these kinds of things. Like if the people in the chat haven't read or seen a performance of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, it's like one of the best portrayals of like struggling with addiction while being high functioning that I've ever read. It's like, and it's like stuff like that I really do appreciate about being from the.
Is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof like a book? Sorry,
So
I'm completely ignorant.
it's good. It's a play by Tennessee Williams, but like
Ah.
typically it's consumed as a book because it's hard to like for people to just throw on a play, right?
Mhm.
Um, but like it's kind of a play about not much, which is also thematic for Southern literature because like you'll like have long stretches of time where it's hot in the summer and nobody wants to do anything. And so like but yeah, so it's a play that's typically consumed as a book. You can borrow it. I can mail you my copy.
Oh, thank you. Old school library system. Um, yeah, and I feel like that maybe is related to this whole like feeling special. Do you feel like there's an underdog energy that we both have, and that's why we're drawn to each other?
Can you say that one more time?
Oh, do you feel like we both have the underdog energy?
Yeah, I think we both have a chip on our shoulder, in different ways, and so like put words in your mouth, but we've kind of had conversations about your immigrant background, and like on me, I don't know if it's like a Catholic guilt or like a neuroticism about like what I want to do, or if it's the reflexively rebellious thing to like prove that I'm right by being rebellious. But like the chip on our shoulder is like the thing that makes me feel like we generally get it when the other person is talking.
Mhm. And and I feel like that's almost like related to the whole like we feel happy when we do a good job, which I think is the ultimate addiction in some ways, right? Because like whenever we set ourselves up in these situations, then what ends up happening is like, okay, well now we feel miserable unless we do a good job, and therefore like other substances or means of like generating dopamine release in our brains and like causing us to temporarily feel happy becomes a lot more attractive to our daily lives. So I feel like for me, my personal practice is to be very cognizant of that and catch myself like earlier and earlier when I'm like, wait, I'm again deferring happiness until I achieve a certain goal. But I have felt happiness. I know what is happening in my body when that happens. Like why am I disallowing myself from having that feeling? Like why do I feel like I need to push it off as a deferred reward? Don't I trust myself that I will do what is best even without getting this like body response, like positive reinforcement afterwards? Like I'm already in my late 30s, so I
Yeah.
think like that's something that I'm like you and me and then like Sam and Riley often talk about actually, right?
Yeah, like I tend to like what you described is what I think am trying to embrace more in my daily life. What I struggle to reconcile is the fact that like I've done some pretty cool stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and the pretty cool stuff that I've done is like a direct like there's a direct through line to a whole bunch of like misery and like, hey, get the fuck up, quit sleeping kind of energy that like even though at a lot of parts I felt bad while doing it, and the reward in terms of like the dopamine released obviously doesn't compensate for months of misery, but like
Mm-hmm.
intellectually looking back, I'm like, oh, I would make the same trade of being miserable 6 months on like 6 months and I do thing X. But I don't feel super strongly about that like this moment, but sometimes I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you think about that trade-off? Because like you've worked your ass off and done like, cool things too, and like I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you appreciate that previous Christian suffered.
I feel like this is where I'm curious for you as well, because for me I think like if I were to like plainly say the things I've accomplished, like I got my neuroscience PhD, I published papers that I've cited thousands of times. The work is working towards like actual treatment for multiple sclerosis. Then I hopped onto the corporate train and then like made the high six figures and all of that, and it's sort of like, but at every point I was miserable. Right? And it's like, well, like in looking back, that is pretty like, good on paper. But like at the time, I was like, oh God, this is still not good enough. And the worst part is, like, even when you accomplish it, then you really know that whatever that you were hoping would give you that feeling does not give you that feeling. And I think that's
Ooh,
what, drove me into like much more of a spiritual practice inclination, because I was like, clearly these like paths I've explored did not solve my fundamental issue of solving for eternal happiness. So let me try these other paths that are much more inclined towards it. And I see that Riley said existence is suffering. I argue against that. I think like that is one of the most frequent misquotes of the Buddha, where he's like, life is suffering, but literally he has never said that. He said something closer to the fact that you know within life, attachment to outcomes or attachment to the self is suffering. It's like there is some like subcomponents to that sentence. So I am like still naively, optimistically believing that there is a path where we can greatly, greatly reduce our suffering through clearly seeing, for example, this kind of behavior of like deferring happiness until we get success.
Kristen, do you consider yourself a true believer in like
Mhm.
anything?
I don't think so. I don't think so, especially because I know people who are much more faith driven. I would
Mm-hmm.
say I am a much more of a, I will practice this thing and then I will see whether that helps. which I think is also closer to the original way the Buddha taught it. He wasn't like, believe in this. It was more like, you got to see for yourself. And in a way, think like a scientist, like run your own personal experiments, see which ones actually lead to more happiness.
Interesting. So I think that might be a missing component, because the what you've described of continually like doing the next thing you were supposed to do. I felt
Mhm.
that a lot with like all my Harvard Business School classmates, where they would like, after a couple of drinks, they would confide in me where they're like, I don't know what to do next because I got here and this is what I was trying to do my whole life. And I didn't feel that way. Like, I'm incredibly grateful I had the opportunity to go, but I like kind of like was like, oh shit, what do I do? And then I like pivoted hard and worked and all that. But I don't have the experience of having never been happy during the kind of like toil. And I've tried to analyze that a lot. And I think the reason was like yes, I had tons of misery. There's like a bit of a community aspect in there, but like we've talked about this before, but I didn't feel like I super in a lot of military stuff. But the key thing was that after sucking for 3 months through military school, or like doing a training exercise, or doing a deployment, or like I genuinely was like, oh no, I am a badass when I do this thing. And like,
Mhm.
that's not the permanent state. That's like, I don't go walking around feeling it, but like accomplishing the thing for me was undeniable proof that like, hey, I did the fucking thing. And I got a lot of self actualization value out of that. And when I shifted from doing, we'll call it like dirt and muscles work, which is like mostly military stuff. Like use your brain, yeah, but like, it's not that complicated. You shoot, move, and communicate, and like that's what you do. Um, Shifted to a lot of knowledge work. The piece of me that like, okay, when I ship a PR and it connects and like, okay, the build works and the app works the way that I want it to, blah blah blah. Like, I'm still like, okay, so what? I just push some fucking pixels around on a page. Like, ultimately, it does empower creators and do all the stuff that like, I can construct a value structure from, but
Mhm.
like the true believer piece for me might be the bridge between like why I did feel fully self actualized when I was like rolling in my Bradley across the desert, fucking shooting stuff. It was so fun. And it almost did make the like, okay, we're sleeping in the dirt for 4 weeks in order to do so worth it.
So I'm curious, like, because I know you've had all these like extreme like human experiences, right? Of being in the military, of like, having this extremely successful like startup. Like, how can you ever get that high again? Can Farcaster
Here,
ever provide you that level of high ever again?
here, let me disconnect while I jump off a bridge. No, like anybody in the chat, if you need help to somebody, my DMs are always open. The I think what I've found, so variety helps. Breadth of experience has helped me a lot. Like I am not just a startup dude. Like I play music, I sing, I play guitar, I write. I like doing all of these other things that let me show myself I am more than just one facet of myself. And in
Mhm.
previous eras of my life, I didn't do that, and I think suffer for it. Um, I also think there's an adjustment of like, yeah, my global maximum for certain things is just like set at that, like at that level. But that doesn't mean, to your point, you can't appreciate the inputs as you're doing them, because the inputs are the only thing out of all of this that you can control. So
Mhm.
like by inputs, for anybody in the chat that doesn't like understand Farcaster speak, like the inputs are showing up every day and writing the 1,000 words you told yourself you're going to write, or shipping the feature you said you're going to ship that day. Like Kristen, what are your inputs?
So these are inputs that lead to happiness?
Inputs that let you feel like you are living your life the way that you want to live it.
Great question. I think the easiest way for me to get to that is like imagining that like, somehow I won the crypto lottery and I don't have to work for money anymore.
Yeah.
What would I do with my time? And I was telling my wife that like, wait, I think I still want to do this podcast.
Hell yeah.
How am I going to fit my travel to Alaska and get good streaming with you? I need better internet. So I realized that like it would be some combination of like putting out content and
Yeah.
like of course being able to sightsee and travel. But because I'm lucky enough to be able to do quite a lot of that, like especially during winter vacations. I also know that like these like what the vacation type things like there's also a really quick local maxima as to the amount of happiness I can get from traveling, even though
100%.
like that's a lot of people's like greatest retirement goals, right? So I think there is something like to do with like outputting creativity and like the obsession with solving the distribution problem and like being able to layer that with like helping friends who are trying to help people. Like there is some like weird little knot I'm trying to untie here, and of course I always try to tie it back to like some Buddhist practice thing, but
Yeah.
I know that there is a worldly obsession going on as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, period, full stop. I don't think that there's anything else after this. And so for me, the here and now is what I'm trying to optimize for. And so, and I honestly, this should be its own. I mean, we'll probably have a God episode or something, right? Because like that, what a catchy thing to see in the feed. Like that'll stop the scroll on the blood flat background. But one
Oh,
of the
just the
things,
word God, like
yeah,
with a
we just
lowercase g and a period.
maybe. I mean, I like in my brain what that visually looks like. One
Yeah.
what you're talking about with how you're like talking about the practices you return to and the things that you're basically doing in your everyday life is kind of the thing that I wanted to get at the most in this special, and I'm glad we got back around to it before we cut off. For me, the things that make me feel special, I'm trying to incorporate in my normal day so that every day is kind of that thing. Because like, if in a previous life I could only on a really really like comfortable couch every once in a while because like I couldn't afford it or whatever, or like that my friend had a great couch and I'd like lay on it, I'm like, man, I fucking love this couch. Like I try to take those things where I notice that I'm feeling like above the baseline in whatever I'm doing, and it doesn't have to be a physical thing, right? Like going on a walk, that's a physical thing, but it's not like an expensive thing. Like going on a walk and feeling a sense of like, oh, I just looked at trees for 30 minutes and now I don't have all my brain is less rotted than it was at the start of the walk. Like integrating those things into my daily life are really about like making the normal day more special and making the days more normal, if that makes any sense at all.
Oh, for sure. I believe that, yes, a walk. I used to like kind of make fun of the fact that I think there's even some cast about walking
Yeah.
being so special, but
Mid-curve
for
memes.
reals. And I think it's like, of course, there's like correlations, right? If you have time to take a walk, it was probably not such a miserable day. But
Yeah.
I think like, structuring the day around having time to take like, a short walk, a long walk, actually is probably one of the highest increases to happiness that we can get. And of course, like the privilege of having a place, pleasant to walk around is also really helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
fact.
I'm gonna play the outro music and play us off
Yeah.
since we're
Thank
on
y'all
the
for
hour.
stopping by. It
Thank
was
you all so much. I love reading the chat.
thanks for making the special day special.
Exactly. I'll put this up. Space to be, aka at no ordinary magic.
Hell yeah,
Completely
ordinary
agree.
magic. That's all the things that we're doing. I love that. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Have
you
a
all.
great
Have a
one.
good one.
Go on a walk.
I saluted. You can't see it.